Hey guys, Stephanie here. So this video has been asked for quite a bit from people who are going through IVF, so I wanted to finally get it up for you. Like I said in my last video a few days ago, I have not been feeling so hot in the first trimester, so it's been really hard to get ready and get these videos done for you, but here I am with my handy little book. So I'm going to be reading a lot because obviously I wrote everything down and I won't remember all the details without reading them. So this is kind of, I tried to write down anything that I felt starting from the day of transfer until about 2 weeks after transfer, just because I know when I was going through it, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos and doing a lot of Googling, wondering what did people feel when they had a positive test or a negative test? Did it work? Didn't it work? Because what you're doing at that point is really just grasping for straws and you're in survival mode. The 2-week wait in any pregnancy, natural through IVF, you know, it's always very difficult and very long when you're trying. There are some people who are lucky enough to not have any problems or really have to know much about how trying really works, and you know, I'm super glad for those people, but unfortunately that's not the case for a lot of us. We have to try a little bit harder, tracking cycles and doing all of that, and so you know when your 2-week wait is, and it is definitely a little more stressful when you're trying to get pregnant that way. So and then when you add IVF into the mix, you're adding a lot of money, a lot of added stress, a lot of added hormones and drugs and things that you don't need to take in a natural pregnancy. So it's definitely a lot of stress and a lot on the line for a lot of people doing IVF, especially if you're at, you know, your last embryos and you're looking at another retrieval and that kind of thing. So I understand how stressful it is, and I wanted to share with you some of my symptoms from my positive IVF frozen transfer. If you haven't watched my previous videos, be sure to check out my playlist and go back, subscribe to my channel, and make sure to go back because I did document this whole IVF journey from the beginning of our egg retrieval all the way through our 3 frozen embryo transfers. So hopefully that helps anyone that's looking for more information. So I will start with day 0, which was transfer day. Now you would think transfer day, you don't obviously, you wouldn't feel a whole lot. The transfer itself is not super uncomfortable. It's just like kind of like a pap test basically. It's not horrible. It's nothing like the egg retrieval is. But before the transfer, I was feeling a bit nauseous and dizzy, but that was just my nerves and anxiety, obviously. I had my transfer at 10:30 in the morning. I had mild to moderate cramping throughout the day, so the late morning after transfer and then throughout the afternoon, I did feel quite a bit of cramping, which is normal after you do have a transfer, I think, whether it works or not. You did have something, you know, a catheter put into your uterus, and there's just some, probably some cramping, which is totally normal. The late morning, I was feeling sick again. Like I said, I do get a lot of anxiety when I have big things going on like this. So I don't know if that was anxiety related or, you know, something else. But, and then I also got a metallic taste for a little while that night, which I thought was weird. I have gotten a metallic taste in most of my pregnancies. In my natural pregnancies, it was actually one of the things that made me know I was pregnant before it would even show up on a test. But in my IVF pregnancies, it was a little different because metallic taste generally is hormone related. And when you're doing an IVF transfer, you're on a lot of hormones. So it's the problem with IVF 2-week waits as well is with all the hormones, the estrogen and progesterone that you're on, they do mimic a lot of pregnancy symptoms. So it's really hard to know, like, oh, are these symptoms from because I'm pregnant, because the embryo implanted, or is it from all these hormones that I'm on? And it's really hard to know because honestly it can go either way. So the next thing is we had my transfer was about 3 hours away from where we live. So on our way home, we stopped at about halfway, so about after an hour and a half, so that I could walk around a little bit, keep the blood flowing and stuff like that. As far as bed rest or any specific things after transfer, really is not necessary anymore, unless your doctor specifically tells you to. There are some clinics that are a little more old-fashioned and still do tell you that, but for the most part, I think most clinics say go on your normal life. You know, it's good to walk around, it's good to get and keep the blood flowing to your uterus by walking and, you know, doing normal things. Maybe just limit, you know, your lifting and things like that. I personally, the only thing I really chose to change was I did not work out until my beta test. So I do work out pretty much every day, and I decided I was just gonna take it easy, not work out. I would just, you know, walk and look after Beckett, who was 18 months at the time. So that alone is enough exercise in the day a lot of the time. So I didn't really worry about lifting him or anything like that. I just kind of went on like normal. All I did was just cut out my workouts so that I just for my own, you know, for what I felt I wanted to do. Really, it's not even necessary to do that if you've been working out before, they say. But like I said, every doctor and every clinic is different as well, so always follow the recommendation of your own doctor. Everything I'm saying here is just my experiences with this transfer, so it doesn't mean that, like I said, I'm not an expert. This is just my experience. So always listen to your doctor. They have the best advice for you and your own specific case. I was a bit lightheaded in the afternoon. Now, one thing I've never done before, but lots of people say to do, is eat McDonald's fries after transfer. And for some reason I was like, yeah, let's do it. Because like I never eat McDonald's, but their fries are great. So I was like, sure, why not? I think it's something to do with the salt. So I did. I really don't believe that has anything to do with anything, but they were good and I enjoyed them. So hey, why not? And then I also did do the pineapple core. That's one thing I've done a lot of the time through my trying to get pregnant and especially for my transfers. So you take a pineapple and you take the actual core of the pineapple, you cut it into 5 and just put it in bags in the fridge or whatever. And each day you eat one chunk of the pineapple core. It has something in it called bromelain, which is supposed to help with implantation. So whether it works or not, I mean, it doesn't hurt anything other than the pineapple core is like really hard to chew and really dry. Something you can do, one tip I have is if you're making some kind of a shake, I drink Shakeology every day, even through my pregnancy. Or if you're just making a fruit smoothie or whatever, throw your piece of pineapple core in there in your blender and it should blend up just fine, and then you don't have to suffer through chewing the big dry chunk of pineapple core. So that's something you could try, and you take it for 5 days from the day of transfer for the next 5 days. And then I had a metallic taste for about an hour that afternoon, which I did kind of mention before. So that was transfer day. Now I'll try to speed up so this video isn't super long. Day 1 after transfer, I was still cramping quite a bit. I was having some throbbing pains in my lower left and my lower right, which I thought was weird. Usually I only have pains kind of in one side, most often in my right side. So then I was kind of wondering, okay, are both embryos trying to implant? Because we did transfer 2, but obviously we know now that is not the case because only one of them did stick. But I was having some pains in both my lower left and my lower right sides. And it was kind of rotating between sides. I also had a very heavy feeling in my uterus on day 1. I got extremely tired around 3 p.m. and stayed that way for the rest of the day and night. But like I said, that could just be all the anxiety around if it's working. You know, I really struggled the first 5 days of this 2-week wait because we transferred 2 embryos. And they were our last 2 embryos, so really our last chance without having to do another retrieval, which we didn't know if we were going to do or not. So there was a lot on the line for us this time around, and it was very, very stressful. At least last time, you know, we had backups, we still had embryos if it didn't work, and with our first one having the chemical pregnancy, it didn't work. At least we had the backups. This time I knew we didn't. So I found that to cause me a lot more anxiety and stress this time around during this 2-week wait. I also, around 10 o'clock at night, got lightning crotch, just one time only. If you don't know what lightning crotch is, it's like this shooting pain, basically in your crotch area. And it like kind of stops you and you go, whoa, like what's going on? But it just happened one time. But lots of people do describe feeling that. So day 2 after transfer, or 2 days post 5-day transfer, I started taking pregnancy tests. I know I'm a little crazy. I knew that nothing would show up that early. With Beckett's pregnancy, I got my first faint positive the evening of day 4, which is still very early, or maybe it was the afternoon. I think it was the afternoon. But in my mind, if I didn't have a positive by the afternoon of day 4, then it must not have worked, because I had it with Beckett on that time. And it's all very irrational, but when you're going through this process, you don't always have totally rational thoughts around it. So I did test knowing it would be negative, so it didn't really bother me a whole lot. I did have quite a bit less cramping on day 2 after transfer as compared to the day of and the first day after. I did have the odd pains on both sides, lower left and right, but nothing major. And then something else that was really interesting is Gracie, my dog. She's a 3.5-pound teacup Maltipoo. She's always been really known when I'm pregnant. Sorry. And she was laying on my stomach a lot more than usual, which she doesn't always do. So I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe she knows something I don't. So day 3 after transfer, I tested again first thing in the morning, and it was negative. This time I let it get to me a little bit more, even though I knew it was way too early. But I know some people, if both embryos did take and they were having twins, that maybe it should show up a little earlier. So just all those thoughts you have. I had minimal cramping, much less than before again. I was more bloated today. Also, sorry, I was really lightheaded. I even blacked out a few times when I was standing up, which has happened to me before in pregnancies, but like I said, could be low blood pressure or anxiety as well. Still super tired. My boobs were a little bit sore and I had some shooting pains in them, but nothing major. In the evening, I had more pain in my lower left side, and my legs were falling asleep a lot, which I thought was kind of weird, but and then I tested again with Wanfo that night on the evening of day 3, and there was a possible like crazy faint line squinter that really only I could see, but I wasn't even confident to say that it was a squinter. But it kind of got lighter and lighter as it dried, so I just thought, oh, it must be an evap line. And then I didn't really get my hopes up too much over it. And then Gracie was laying on my stomach quite a bit again on day 5. So day 4 was the big day, the day that I was thinking, okay, I might have had a really faint line last night, so maybe it'll be better today. So on day 4, I wrote that I had not many symptoms today, so a lot of the things I was feeling were kind of gone. I did have a bit of a metallic taste in the late morning and afternoon, and then a little bit more again in the evening, which to me is always a pretty good sign. I also had some faint cramping, but not too much. And then I tested that morning and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got a negative both times. And like, I'm really good at finding the faintest lines on tests. I've done it for 5 years and now 6 pregnancies. I've done it a lot. I've done it many more months of trying in between that. You know, it took 5 months with one of them, 6 months with another, and 12 months with another of all my natural pregnancies to get pregnant. So I've taken more pregnancy tests in 5 years than I care to admit, but I definitely know what a faint line looks like, and I can spot them pretty well. So there was nothing, and that like really got me down. I was like a pretty big mess for the rest of that day on day 4. I knew rationally that it was still early and there was still time, but the irrational side of me knew that that's when I got my positive with Beckett. And so I pretty much just convinced myself that it didn't work. And I just had a really bad day. And then like, because of that, obviously I was very grouchy, very moody. Also very bloated and gassy, and my stomach hurt so badly. And then I tested at 9:30 at night with a WANFO, and I was pretty sure I had a faint positive. So I thought, okay, you know, it's still really faint. Maybe I'm not out. Maybe it is okay. So I tested with a first response, and the line was definitely a big fat positive on the first response. So my WANFOs were like super they were not near as sensitive as they were in the past this batch, and the first response definitely showed a line that I could see without like me quite clearly. Still everybody else would have to squint, but I could tell, and it was like the biggest relief I felt in a long time, knowing that it worked. So I did get my first very faint big fat positive on the evening of day 4. But if you're watching this and you're in your 2-week wait, just know that that really is very early. Lots and lots of people, I would say day 5 is quite a common day to get a positive test. But there are also lots of people who don't get one until day 6 or sometimes 7, sometimes even 8. If the embryo took longer to implant, you know, it's always possible. So definitely don't lose hope on day 4 like I did, but I can say that all I want. I know it's very hard to do. So just hang in there, keep trying to stay positive as much as you can, and hopefully, you know, you don't have to wait too long for your big fat positive. So day 5, after transfer, I tested on WANFO and first response, had a big fat positive. So that was good. It was definitely getting a lot darker on the first response than it was on the evening of day 4. I had a metallic taste on and off quite a bit in the afternoon and night. I did have more cramping again that evening, and I was nauseous in the afternoon a little bit, but also could have been from anxiety. It was the first day I could actually tell that maybe from my symptoms that I was pregnant, mostly from the strong metallic taste I had, and then just not feeling totally great. Still very gassy and bloated. Day 6 after transfer, pretty strong positive in the morning on the first response. I looked back and it looked stronger than it did in my previous pregnancies on day 6. So of course, now that I had a positive test, I had to start wondering if did one embryo take or did they both take? Are we having twins? Like now it's, oh my God, we might be having twins, right? And then the thinking, am I going to be disappointed if it's not, and all of that. And if you do look back to my video on where we found out that only one embryo took, you will see that it was a little hard for me finding out that only one took, even though we're super grateful and happy, you know, that we have this baby coming. It was still hard to lose one of them, especially when we found out that there was a boy and a girl. So it would have been boy-girl twins, which is always what I thought would be really neat. But we are super happy to have one. So I did get over that, but it did take me about a week of, you know, feeling a lot of different emotions over it. But during this 2-week wait, it's a lot of, okay, I'm pregnant now. Is there one or is there two? So that wait was kind of long too, waiting to find that out. So this is day 6, nauseous in the late afternoon and evening, not terrible, but it was there. And then metallic taste in the morning again. Day 7, like I said, this is around the point when lots of people are just starting to get their positive tests, especially if you haven't taken a lot of tests in the past. You might not really see the really faint squinters that I can see. So day 7, I felt pretty good today, a little nauseous in the late afternoon, but barely at all, and still very bloated and gassy. Day 8, got my first beta done for my doctor, and I was nauseous, quite nauseous that day, worse than the day before. Day 9 to 12, I just wrote that I felt pretty good, probably the same types of things with the bloating and, you know, nausea here and there, but generally I felt pretty good. Day 12, after transfer, I was nauseous in the late afternoon. Most of the days I was finding that I was already beginning to get nauseous, at least in the afternoon and evenings. And it was also my last day of taking baby aspirin. Day 13, 14, and 15, I felt quite good. And that is about it. So like, those were my symptoms through the 2-week wait after our frozen embryo transfer. like I said, when you're doing IVF and you're on all of the hormones, it's really hard to know if you're having pregnancy symptoms or your symptoms are related to your hormones. So I forgot to mention in my last video of my first trimester pregnancy update that I am now done my hormones. So I was allowed to stop my estrogen and progesterone needles, estrogen pills and progesterone needles at 10 weeks pregnant. And I stopped at about 10 and a half weeks. So I just finished. I wanted to kind of wean down over a couple days, even though they say it didn't matter. So the placenta is taken over and I am off all those hormones. I am done the needles. And yeah, so that's something to look forward to if you do get a big fat positive on IVF, that you will get to stop your hormones around week 10. Although, like, seriously, when you find out you're pregnant so soon and you know, like, the moment the embryo is put into you, you know, like, it just makes pregnancy go really slow at the beginning, especially for the first trimester when you're super sick and stuff. Like, it feels like I should be further than 10 and a half weeks right now, but I'm not. And hopefully I think it will go faster once you see, like, the 12-week ultrasound when the baby looks like a baby, and, you know, for us, when the limbs are measuring good and we know that the testing was right and the baby is not sick like our other babies, you know, it's all a really big relief. And then obviously you hope to start feeling better in the second trimester as well. So that also makes things go a little bit faster than when your every day seems like an eternity because you feel so sick and you can't do anything. So that is it. Like I said, follow your doctor's advice. If you're watching other people's YouTube videos or, you know, Googling symptoms, just remember everybody is different and every pregnancy is different as well. So follow your doctor's advice, and hopefully you can find some videos to give you some reassurance and help you get through the 2-week wait, because it truly does suck. I know, I've been there many times. So hang in there, and if you want to keep following my journey through this pregnancy, or you want to go back and see my IVF journey, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you again soon. Bye guys.